Welcome to my completely unhinged shadow of the Erdtree lore theories. I mean, completely schizo. You might ask, what's the point of talking about a DLC or a trailer for a expansion to a 2-year-old game? Apologies for the squeaky ass chair. To that I say, I see your point. But then again, this is Elden Ring, a game that has literally changed my life. More on that later. It is my favorite game of all time. I'm not even joking. The other reason why I don't mind spending this much effort on a DLC trailer is that the lore of Elden Ring has quickly become my favorite fantasy story. Again, ever. But only if you don't mind putting some of it together yourself. That's because there's proper world-class pedigree here, with Game of Thrones' George R.R. Martin hailing from the West, lending his gravitas, his penchant for incest, family conflict, huge drama that spans eons, plus a fondness for hair color and the implications thereof. He lends all of this to From Software's Hidetaka Miyazaki from the East, creator of some of gaming's finest fantasy realms, including the prolific Dark Souls trilogy and others. Full disclosure, the base Elden Ring game was my first Souls-like experience. But before you judge me too harshly, know that since then, so just over 2 years later, I've lived in and beaten, I think, all of those worlds. Next for me was Demon Souls, then Bloodborne, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Sekiro, before moving on to those they inspired, such as Nier 1 and 2, and look, you know the rest. It even provoked me to give Breath of the Wild another go, so I did, managing to beat it just before Tears of the Kingdom was released. Then I beat that too. And then I beat them both again. But not because I was a fan of the Zelda games, but because Elden Ring had rewired my brain from casual 45-year-old gamer to a serious campaigner. The kind that needed to swing a great sword at least 100 times a week or so. Even now, I'm logged into a save file on my PlayStation 5, one of 470 hours deep. But I've also managed another chunk of my life on my PC handheld, itself home to another few profiles. You've seen all the How Dark Souls Saved Me videos, so I won't elaborate just now on what it did for me. Perhaps that too deserves its own video. But in short, I recently faced a very real health threat that could easily have seen the end of me. I literally thought I might expire before this damn DLC came out, which is a week before my next birthday. Thankfully, I was armed with the resilience that these games will provide you with. If you face the challenge long enough, you'll be ready for the day the challenge needs to face you. And then you hand it its ass on a platter. Put another way, fuck you, cancer. I've beaten Millennia, the blade of Mikula.
Peggy 16.
Let's react. Okay, From Software, Bandai. I've heard of these guys. Pretty good. Okay, black screen. Hold. Maximum drama. Okay. Marika's hand. Based on the ring. Slipping into what looks like a guard-skin sack. A swaddling cloth, the way of Marika literally taking her first steps as a god, I assume. Marika holding what looks like a rune arc. It's the threads she just, wow. Okay, so this is basically the Erdtree in one way or another, formed by a bunch of corpses. See a lot of that in the game, no surprises there. Okay, the Wicker Men we saw from the previous trailer, that's pretty cool. And
one that could never be
pikemen, sentries, what looks like a shape like Garank, Malekith. Wow, he's commanding these flaming snake things. Who is that? A lot of twisty weapons in this game. I'm gonna hit pause. Okay, that was very fun, but let's go back. Let's go back to the shape over here. So, okay, so firstly, I know people have been mentioning that this might be the Gloam Eyed Queen. I think if we're gonna see the queen, the opposition to Marika, she's not going to be burnt and exploited. She's going to be on a throne. They're going to make a super big fuss of her. She could be a boss in one way or another. I mean, there's time travel, alternate dimensions and so on, but she is not going to be just burnt and on her knees. They would hype her up to no end. But it could be someone that works for her, a kind of general. I see Black Knife assassinate vibes here as well. Her weapon's super interesting. So if that was the Gloam Eyed Queen, she would have the Godslayer's greatsword. This is quite twisty. The noble and the apostle both have sort of between the peeler and the stitcher, these are weapons that are quite twisty. There's a lot of like spirals and DNA strand type of design, styling, architecture in Elden Ring overall. So I'm not surprised to see this. The Gloam Eyed Queen and the whole guardskin obsession. There's a lot of, removing of skin, which this place is basically skinned corpses, bits of fat, bits of all kinds of gore. So I can see that weapon being part of a set that includes the peeler and stitcher and the Godslayer sword itself, like quite spirally as well. But I don't think this is the Gloam Eyed Queen herself. I just feel like they'd hype her up because she was at one point Marika's biggest threat. Well, I have a theory about that, but let's get to the trailer. Wacky ass theories right at the end. Let's keep going. There is the lion dancer scene from the previous trailer, having a go, and he's going through he's trying to fight Mesmer. Mesmer's like, nope, not having it. And sure enough, they call him the Impaler for a good reason. There are several of these lion dancers, not lion dancers, that's something else. As we see the buildings in the distance being eaten up. Whoa, pause. So that is the town being absorbed or disintegrated, or use whatever similar word you desire, but above it is this knurling of trees, Erdtree / or in conjunction with old tree, the crucible tree, a little bit of death root as well, perhaps. This gold that I see no longer looks like a sap. It looks more like the gold thread that Marika was weaving just now as a rune arc. In fact, if you look dead center on this picture, there appears to be Marika holding up her hands and that new big rune arc, the beginning of the rune part of the Elden Ring, being formed. So was she somehow transported, levitated to that position and is now weaving that gold thread that she pulled out of the guardskin swaddling cloth and is now weaving around the tree, thus creating the Erdtree as we know it from the lands between. Certainly seems that way, but let's keep going. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that is, I'll pause. So that is obviously Miquella's great rune. The first time I ever saw it, my mind went, it's the sword and shield. I don't know why I did that, but anyway. It is obviously part of the great rune. It is almost certainly going to be our bonfire / site of grace in this version of Elden Ring, this land, the Shadowland, where we'll be resting and leveling up, which will be interesting because we're leveling up in a different way in this game. But okay, let's keep going. Stunning locations. Here's another one. Man, that looks good. I'm gonna die everywhere. Pause on this very golden scene. I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here. Maybe this alludes to that Marika ascension to the tree, but it looks like Miquella and he's doing some weird golden shit here. Don't know, this looks like a lot of fun. This could play out a bunch of ways, but I'd bet that's Miquella. Let's keep going in case everything I've just said now is for nothing. Walking along, all angelic-like. Boom. Okay, hitting pause because that is Saint Trina, which is also the more male-centric version of Mikula. This is the one with the ability of the power of sleep, I guess, if that's a power. I can do it anytime I want. But very similar to the nascent butterfly, to the lily, Saint Trina lily. So there's a lot of stuff being picked up here that, evokes Saint Trina vibes, the same bluish color. What is interesting is that they mention divesting or giving up his fate and then showing us Saint Trina. So I almost feel like there's a message there. Are they saying that by giving up his fate, he's giving up the opportunity to become Saint Trina, or don't know. Let's keep going. Okay, this is cool. Touching the ground, maybe starting a bonfire. Maybe it's like we might find that with the rune, there's a small site of grace or similar, that once you touch it, it actually creates from the ground this rune-like site of grace. I love the scene because all of these people, let's call them people, that we see, I mean, most likely NPCs, we've seen in the previous trailer as well. There's the Kung Fu monk, there's the gladiator, there's the mask-wearing guy, there's the typical knight. I am more, like, folks are going, oh, these are interesting, we'll meet them along the way. I'm like, dude, what if every one of these guys represents a quest? That'll be cool. I want every one of these guys to have their own little quest line. Never mind little, long ass quest line. I don't want to just do the main quest of the DLC. I want to get everyone's little quest. I want to get everyone's armor, everyone's sword. That sword is mine. That sword is mine. I want that hat, that mask. Completely off the rails. Sorry, let's go back to it. Will I follow you guys? Absolutely. Along Mikula's footsteps. Yes, I will definitely walk with you guys. Boom, there it is. Shadow of the Erdtree. Holy shit. I am ready. I almost wasn't. Okay, now for my wacky lore theories. Okay, so here's my theory. What if Marika was a deathbed companion in the Shadow Realm? This deathbed companion, and the old man beside her in the painting, was the noble she needed to lay with in order for him to be reborn, or given a new life somehow. Either way, it's from her affair with this noble that, as the narrator suggests, gold arose in the form of these strands. Mind you, there's another form of reincarnation to consider, perhaps by being swaddled in a godskin cloth. Whoa, that's not what a deathbed companion does. Rather, that's how the Gloam Eyed Queen famously gives new life. But that's to make a godskin apostle, which, let's be honest, Mesmer kinda looks like. But that is exactly what this scene depicts here, don't you think? Those stitches certainly imply a swaddling cloth. So, two very different ways to achieve the same thing, reincarnation, performed by, let's call them rivals, in regards to who will control the lands between, the Golden Order or the Crucible it intends to replace. This obviously depends on whether you believe Radagon existed all along, or if he only came into being after Godfrey was shunned from the lands between. But what if they are not rivals? What if they're yet again two identities but one person? Marika is the Gloam Eyed Queen too? Even I think that's going too fast since she's already Radagon. So, counterpoint, what if they're in fact lovers? Kind of the modus operandi for Marika, just ask poor Ranala. If you can't defeat them, marry them. Something interesting happens when we ship Marika or Radagon with the Gloam Eyed Queen. Like, for one, Mesmer could be their son. I mean, it could explain his red hair and his apostle-like appearance. But that's almost not crazy enough. So now we're gonna get really nutty. Are you ready? So what if the scene where the old man, seemingly impaled by a great golden rune, which also resembles a ribcage and also a tree sapling, It is in fact the Elden Ring after it arrived in the lands between, and the seduction and betrayal involves this man being resurrected via deathbed companionship and or swaddling cloth, or even a combination of the two. The gold thread that Marika later pulls out of the swaddling bag cloth being the resurrected or reformed golden rune, now in a more malleable form, while the blood and viscera being all that remains of the man himself. He wasn't made aware of the fact that he was actually being sacrificed just so that this golden thread would be rendered from his corpse. And it's this thread we see Marika holding as she becomes a god, subsequently weaving it around the great tree to transform it into the golden Erdtree of the lands between. The old man's remains, that's the shadow, and the thread, that's the gold. What thread? This thread. And this thread. But what other evidence is there to suggest Marika could be a deathbed companion? Well, the only other one such person we encounter is Fear, who offers us the Baldican blessing. So not quite a veil or a mimic veil, but certainly similar. Okay, that was a lot. I've theorized that the Gloam Eyed Queen and Marika were lovers, that Mesmer potentially is their godskin baby boy. I've also theorized that the old man with his golden rune ribcage was swaddled out of existence and shit. Look, I did warn you that this would get completely unhinged, and look, there are more holes in these theories than there are in Stormvale Castle. But sure as shit, that was fun. The biggest problem I've created for myself is that I've tried to combine two fairly okay theories into one sketchy one. There's just so much to farm here, such as how this version of Marika looks a bit more masculine than the one we meet in the base game. But without the red hair, that quite makes her Radagon. So is this a pre-Radagon but still male version of Marika? And is it this one that seduced and betrayed the Gloam Eyed Queen? And if so, alternatively, is that the affair that kicked off this war? Then again, we've been theorizing that Mesmer got his red hair from Radagon, but what if we got it the wrong way around the entire time? And Radagon, in fact, got his red hair from his father, Mesmer. And if Mesmer and the Gloam Eyed Queen were in fact lovers, and the parents of Radagon and Marika, but then how would you consolidate that with the line that Mesmer says, "Mother, would you truly lordship sanction?" Except we don't actually see his lips move. It could be anyone saying that line. Hell, it could even be Mikla. I think it's incredibly foolish to assume that Mikla is a good force here, but I suppose we'll find out in a month. Either way, I feel like From Software has us all lined up for their biggest story twist of all time. I hope you're ready for it.